I love it when they're a little bit mean, I really do, and he was, oh, so good. True enemies to lovers, they hate each other. Good girl, obviously. It's like a scary golden retriever. He's giving strong Darius Acrux vibes. He might even be meaner. You'll be confused for like 70% of this book. Toxic lesbian vampires. And you guys already know how I feel about stalkers. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, my name is Laura, and today we're going to go through all the books that I've read so far this year that I have really loved. But before we get into that, you know the drill guys, grab yourself a drink, get comfy, and let's get into today's video. I have recently just updated my Kindle Insert, and I thought I'd quickly show you guys because I've had a few comments. I think on my last video I got a comment asking if the Kindle Insert that I had on my Kindle would be made available soon, and I uploaded it to my Etsy store today. So if you want my exact Kindle Insert, I actually did a few of the illustrations on here. I drew these little wyverns, I drew this little Orpheus from Duskwalker Brides, and I made all the other little stickers myself. It just basically has all my favorite books on. I actually wasn't sure if I was going to put this on or not because I almost felt like it was a little bit too niche, and I don't know, I just kind of thought like, oh, why would people want my insert? I put it on there anyway, and if you guys want it, you can have it. But yeah, it's just got a bunch of my favorite books on here. I have quite a few Zodiac Academy references, so I have this one here that I made, If Found Please Return to Darius Acrux. I made a little stamp here for Celeria. I also made a Fairydale one. There's some Poisoner quotes on here, some more stuff from Fairydale. Like I said, Orpheus from Duskwalker Brides, Good Girl, obviously. I have a little stick here that I made for Killswitch in the Devil's Night series. I have a little band-aid here with Starcross on it, again for Zodiac Academy. I have here Dr. Death from Nocticadia. The two purple moths I put on here, they're for Nocticadia as well. This quote here is from Nocticadia. I have Silas Forbes here, who is the MMC from The Poisoner. I have a little Osha here for Quicksilver. I have a little quote here from the Cat and Mouse duet. Down at this side here, I have a quote from To Bleed a Crystal Bloom by Sarah A. Parker, another one of my favorites. And then another quote from Nocticadia here. I just wanted it to kind of be a mash of a lot of my favorite books in one place. And I don't know, I think it's really cute and I really like how it turned out. Anyway, that is not what we are here to talk about today. So this year, so far, I have read 55 books, and yeah, that sounds crazy when I say it out loud because we are halfway through the year now. I set my reading goal this year to 111 books, so I'm 50% through my reading challenge, which is great because we're halfway through the year. So of course I'm going to get into all my 5 stars that I've read this year, but I'm also going to talk about the books that were very close to being 5 stars. So we have quite a few books to go through because I've read some really good books this year. I'm going to go through these books in the order that I read them in this year so far. So my first book was an easy 5-star read, and I read this at the very beginning of January this year, and that is Neverkeep by the Twisted Sisters. I have actually talked about this quite a few times recently on here, so I'm really sorry if you've heard me yap about this loads recently, because the second book has literally just come out in this series, Echo Fort, and I just got an ARC for that and I was so excited. I haven't picked it up yet, but I plan to pick it up very soon. But Neverkeep was honestly so action-packed from start to finish. It was so nice to be back in Celeria, back in the world of Zodiac Academy, but also this was a completely new setting, complete new characters, new orders, and this was set in a war college. Instead of the sort of elements living in some sort of harmony, working together like they do in the Zodiac Academy books, all the elements are at war with each other in these. So there's a lot of segregation and a lot of animosity. It kept me on my toes, and the plot twists at the end, I was gagged. Yeah, I was devastated. The ending left me feeling sick. I feel like the Twisted Sisters are so good at delivering devastating endings, and I feel like they're one of the few authors that still manage to shock me with the plot twists. Like, don't get me wrong, there are elements that are somewhat predictable, but I feel like when you read a lot of books, you kind of pick up on vibes and you can predict plots, but they always seem to shock me with their endings, and this was no exception. Again, we have two FMCs in this. We have Everest and Vesper. I'm not going to tell you what their orders are because I think you need to read this and find out for yourself. We know what Vesper is kind of from the get-go, but Everest, we don't know what she is, kind of like with the twins in Zodiac Academy. But Vesper and her order, I was obsessed. I loved her so much. And we also have a new MMC to obsess over because he's giving strong Darius Acrux vibes. He might even be meaner than Darius was. And again, he has a new order that we haven't seen in any of the other books as well, which was really, really exciting. I loved this. This was 5 stars and I'm so excited to read the next one. If you have read Zodiac Academy, I have no idea why you haven't read this yet. You absolutely need to. Okay, and then the next book wasn't actually a 5-star read. This was a 6-star God tier read for me, and that is Fairydale by Veronica Lancet. I cannot put into words how much I loved this book. This definitely seems like the kind of book that people either love or they hate, and I completely understand why some people just don't get along with it, but for me, this was everything. I love a story that's got the vibes of I will find you in any lifetime, and that embodies this so well. I can't tell you too much about the plot of this just because there's a lot of twists and turns, and this book intentionally misleads you. It intentionally gaslights you. You'll be confused for like 70% of this book, but we basically have paranormal beings. So we have like angels, witches, demons. Our FMC has a relative who has died, and she travels to the town of Fairydale because she's promised this inheritance, and things get really weird really quickly. But this was so romantic. It just takes you on such a journey, and the MMC in this book literally shot straight to the top of my book boyfriends list. I can't lie. He was everything to me, and I just really enjoyed this. I loved the gothic and atmospheric setting. I loved the sort of 3 different timelines we got to read about. There's also sort of slight horror elements in here as well. It is very sort of gothic and dark. Obviously as well, this is very long. It's like 1,000 pages, and it's not one that you can rush. Like, you have to be sat, you have to be invested. This is a journey, and you go on a journey. It's not one that you can binge. I mean, some people have done, and that's impressive, but this took me weeks to read because I was immersed and there was nowhere else I wanted to be, and I took my time with it, and I just loved every second of this. The next book that I rated 5 stars was God of Fury by Rena Kent. This is the 4th book in the Legacy of God series, or is it the 5th book? 5th book. This follows Nikolai and Brandon. This book had me laughing, it had me crying, it had me sobbing, it had me screaming. I loved this so much. And Nikolai is one of my favorite MMCs ever. He is like, he's kind of got golden retriever energy, but he's also very scary. He's like a scary golden retriever. He's a Doberman. I loved him so much. I would definitely check your triggers for this one because this does touch a lot on mental health and self-harm and those kind of topics. So if that's something that could trigger you, maybe don't pick this one up. I think this was the first MM romance that Rena Kent ever did because she has since brought out more MM romance, but this book will definitely stick with me. There's quotes in this book that I will remember for a long time. And also, guys, there is character art in the front of the paperbacks for this series. So that's Nikolai and Brandon. Oh, I just love them so much. They honestly, both of them deserve the world, and I love them so much. Okay, and then the next book that I read that I rated super high was A Kiss of Iron by Claire Sager. And I don't actually have a copy of this one. I really need to get a copy of it because I loved it. And also, I haven't continued the series yet. I need to pick up that series again because I loved book 1. I rated this a solid 4 or 4.5 stars, I think. I really loved the FMC in this. She had like this desire to sort of rebel against the societal norms of what was expected of being a woman, being dutiful and obedient and seen but not heard. And she did not like that, and I loved her for that. So the feminism felt very strong in this book, and I loved the FMC, but I did also really love the MMC. He is an underrated MMC for sure, and he is a shadow daddy. While I was reading this, he definitely had me in a chokehold, and the tension between those two was so good. I really need to pick this back up now that I'm talking about it and thinking about the book and the things that happened in it. I really want to go and pick it up because I loved it so much. It was so good. Okay, and then next was Heavenly Bodies. I rated this 4.5 stars. This is what a romantasy is at its core, I feel. This has all the elements that make up a fun and bingeable romantasy. I remember kicking my feet and giggling constantly. The banter and the tension between the two characters I really enjoyed. I found the world that Amani created so beautiful, and I'm really excited to explore different parts of the world in the next book, because I think that the next book you kind of go to different kingdoms, I believe. While I was reading this, I was like, oh, this is fun, this is good, but the ending is what really sort of shot it up for me, and my jaw was on the floor, and I had so much fun reading this. It's not super long, so it's one that you can sort of read fairly quickly, you know, if you're in a slump and you need something sort of light-hearted, easy to get into. I feel like the world building was quite minimal, but made it sort of very easy to get into, and I will show you some of the art in this Fairydale edition I have. You may have already seen me talk about this book because I did do a full reading vlog on this, but I couldn't make this list without talking about this book and showing you this stunning edition. Okay, and then next I have City of Gods and Monsters by Kayla Edwards. I rated this a solid 4 stars, and I did really enjoy this. This is urban fantasy. We also have a super slow burn, which I love. The MMC in this, you guys. He is scrumptious. He really is. I didn't love the FMC in this. I think that was maybe what kind of brought it down a little bit for me, but I feel like it could be the case where she's kind of flawed and she has sort of a few things that might annoy the reader, but it kind of gives room for her to grow and change as the book goes on. And there's a few books that I'm going to talk about where I kind of have that feeling, but the first in a series, sometimes it hits really hard and sometimes it kind of starts okay and gets better as the series goes on, and I feel like this is one of those. And I do recall now, actually, when I read this and I gave my thoughts on it, that loads of people said that the books do get better and that lore in the FMC also improves as the books go on. So I am super excited to continue the series because, again, I read the first book and I just stopped. I don't know why. I need to continue the series. Okay, then next we have Lady of Darkness by Melissa K. Roach, and I rated this a solid 4 stars, and I absolutely devoured this. I ate it up, but there were a few things that kind of brought it down a little bit from the 5-star mark for me, but I still really enjoyed this and still want to continue the series, absolutely. The thing I think that did it for me was it was so predictable. It was almost like we were being told too much rather than shown. Is that the right way of saying it? I feel like it was implied way too heavily, like the foreshadowing was not subtle at all. And for someone like me that has read a lot of fantasy and is sort of very sensitive to hints in books and picking up plot twists early on, this for me was just so predictable, but I still really enjoyed it. I really loved where this was going. I loved the idea behind this, so I definitely want to continue this series so I can read her other series that's interlinked with this one, Reign of Shadows and Endings, because I've heard amazing things about that and I think I'm gonna love that. I really liked the FMC, but I did find towards the end I was sort of finding patterns where she would be relying on the men too much, and so I'm anticipating a lot of growth for her, and I'm sort of anticipating that in the next book she's going to really come into her power and she's going to have a lot of growth. Like, I feel like it's been set up really well for that. And this is very similar to Throne of Glass in my opinion, just based on the first book. I really need to stop doing this, but again, I've just read the first in the series and just randomly stopped for no reason. Okay, and then the next book that I read and loved was How Does It Feel by Janina O'Reilly. This was easily 4.5 stars. I ate this up. This is so underrated. I feel like so many more people need to be talking about this. This is a true enemies to lovers. None of that rivals to lovers, reluctant allies to lovers. This is true enemies to lovers. They hate each other. And the plot twist in this, I did not see coming. I was floored. I was shook. She takes a bit of a tumble in the forest and ends up falling from the human realm into the Fae realm, into the arms of the unseelie Fae prince. Basically, she gets thrown in a dungeon and is held captive, and he is so mean. He's so mean, and I loved him so much. His name is Mendax, and this is a slow burn, but he does fall first, and he falls hard. I loved this. I ate this up, and I did go on and read the next book, and I didn't like it as much as the first book, but I will absolutely be continuing the series because I need to know how it ends. And this first book was insane. Loved it so much. Okay, and then next book I really want to talk about is Blood and Betrayals by Jeanette Rose and Alexis Rune. And again, I feel like I've talked about this book a lot. If you watch my reading vlog, you guys already know I absolutely adored this. This was 5 stars for me. And I am so tempted to put this on my God tier list. That is how much I enjoyed this. I will say though, I'm holding off for the next book. I want to kind of see how it goes before I bump it to God tier status. I will say that this was probably a little bit longer than it needed to be because it is chunky. She is 1,000 pages. I do feel like as well, a lot of the stuff that was in there, which some people might find unnecessary, for me felt like it made me more connected to the characters because there was sort of quite a lot of the day-to-day included in here. So you really got to know them and kind of form a connection with them. There is quite a lot of spice in this, but it definitely doesn't take away from the story. But if you didn't want to read the spice, you could literally skim it, because the story and the plot in this is so good. Basically, it follows Summer and she is Fae, but she's different to other Fae. There's this whole mystery surrounding her and why she's different and why she doesn't get along with other Fae. And she goes and starts Avalon University, which is like a prestigious magical university for paranormal beings. So there's Fae, there's angels, there's magicians, you know, that kind of thing. So it's almost a bit like a Zodiac Academy setting. And I would say if you loved Zodiac Academy and if you loved Nocticadia by Kerry Lake, then I honestly think you would love this because it had like those vibes mashed together. And the reason why I say Nocticadia is because there's a few characters in this that remind me of Dr. Death, aka Deverick Bramwell from Nocticadia. They were so good. So in this, there's kind of a murder mystery going on when she starts this university, and the people who are being murdered all look like her. And throughout this as well, she's also dealing with having a stalker. And you guys already know how I feel about stalkers. And she becomes best friends with her roommate, who is Alice, who is a vampire, and also meets an angel called Connor, who is our MMC in this book. They have a very similar relationship dynamic to, I would say, Johnny Kavanagh and Shannon Lynch in Binding and Keeping 13, because he has this really lovely family. So there's like a really nice found family element in this, and she kind of doesn't have family and she's got sort of trauma and baggage, and he's this sort of golden angel boy. He's like this student body president and all that. So he's like super popular, super nice, and yeah, the dynamic between them was very interesting. The banter in this was so good. There was so many points in this where I was literally screaming, I was laughing, and then the ending, I was not laughing. I was crying. I was crying a lot. Yeah, it was wild. I need everybody to go and read this. I really do. And by the way, guys, I know you guys are gonna ask, if you haven't watched my reading vlog, then you won't know, but this is my PR ARC edition. And I get asked all the time, where's that copy from? Where's that copy from? Unfortunately, these are not for sale because they were ARCs, but I got the Alice one because they did one for Alice, who's the vampire. They did one for Summer, who's our FMC, and one for Connor, who's our MMC, and each cover has each character on it. And yeah, this was mine. I felt so incredibly lucky to receive this, and I actually had no idea it was coming. It was like the most amazing surprise ever. This is my baby, and I love this book so much, and I am so excited for the next book to come out. The next book is called Sorrow and Strangers. So yeah, I am preparing for more emotional torment for sure. Okay, and next I want to talk about Our Infinite Fates by Laura Stevens. This was 5 stars for me, and again, very much had that theme of I will find you in any lifetime, but with a tragic twist. So basically, these two are reincarnated, and in every lifetime they're reincarnated, they have to kill one or the other before their 18th birthday, and when one of them kills the other, they both die, and then they reincarnate and start the cycle again. You're kind of going through all their different lifetimes, and you don't really know why they're stuck in this cycle and why they have to do this, and it's kind of painful because you can kind of tell neither of them wants to do it. One of them knows the reason why and the other one doesn't, and you're kind of getting answers the same time as them. And in the current timeline that we're reading in, our FMC is trying to stay alive long enough basically to donate bone marrow to save her sister's life, who is dying from cancer. This draws so many complex emotions from you. It's painfully beautiful. I was crying a lot, and it was sort of like, it wasn't like shocking screaming crying, it was like a slow painful ache, and oh my heart. It ended probably how I would have wanted it to end, to be honest. I will probably be thinking about this book for a very long time. Okay, next we have Enchantra by Kaylee Smith. And if you loved Phantasma, then you're absolutely gonna love Enchantra. It had the gothic vibes that we got in Phantasma. It was similar setting, but different story, and this follows Genevieve, Ophelia's sister from book 1, and a new love interest, Rowington, and he was... yeah. In this book we have marriage of convenience, really good banter. Yeah, this was just a fun time, and I think I will probably read literally anything that Kaylee Smith writes because I really love her writing style. I really like the characters in the world she creates, and this was just a spooky, fun, gothic time. Okay, and then next I have Slaying the Vampire Conqueror by Carissa Broadbent. This was so good. I do really need to get a copy of this one. Considering how short it was and considering that it's a standalone, it really fed me. It really gave me substance. I really enjoyed the story. I really enjoyed being back in the world. It's set in the same world as the Crowns of Nyaxia series. The FMC is Arakessan, I think it was called. And basically they wear these shrouds across their eyes and they are technically blind, but they can still see. I would have liked a little bit more information about that and the magic system and how that worked, because I don't think that was really explained, but basically they had a sixth sense where they could see without eyes essentially, and their eyes were taken from them at a young age for them to access this magic and have the ability to see. It kind of gives off like cult vibes, like she was manipulated and essentially in a cult, and she goes to infiltrate the vampire conqueror's camp and kind of becomes somewhat of his captive, and it kind of goes from there, and I just really enjoyed this. Okay, and then next we have Feathers So Vicious and Shadows So Cruel by Liv Zander. This is a duology. It's the Court of Ravens duology, and this was probably a new god tier for me. I rated the first book 5 stars and I did rate the second book 4.5 stars, only because there was one scene in it that was hard to read and I just didn't love. And if you have read this series and you don't know which one I'm referring to the waterfall scene. This was so dark, gruesome and gothic, and I absolutely ate it up. And guys, this is so spicy. This is a why choose. I originally thought it was a love triangle, but it turned out it was a why choose. Again, I did read this one in a reading vlog, so you may have already seen my turmoil over that and not knowing what was going on with that situation, but that serves me right for going in blind. This was quite hard to read at points. There's a lot of trauma. These characters are very troubled, and I would definitely check the trigger warnings. There's a lot of SA and really horrible torture scenes and stuff. The plot was really good. I enjoyed the magic system and the elements of the ravens, how there was the ravens and the humans, and the ravens had the ability to turn into a flock of ravens. I really enjoyed learning about that magic system and how that worked. I just loved this so much. And next I have The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. This, I think I rated 4.5 stars. It was very fast paced and it is very short, but despite it being short, I still really enjoyed this, because I do find sometimes with really short books, you don't get any depth or real sort of story and it feels rushed, but I didn't feel like that with this. I really enjoyed it, and I think Danielle is so good at writing FMCs because I loved the FMC in this. She really carried the book for me. She was very clever and calculated, powerful. I really enjoyed her. Basically, Lara's mother is part of the king's harem, and she's taken from her mother along with her sisters from a very young age and sent off to the desert to essentially train to become spies and assassins. And their mission is to infiltrate the enemy kingdom by marrying the king of the other kingdom, and so that's where Lara comes in. So we have arranged marriage in this, we have enemies to lovers, and yeah, just I ate this up. I also did go on and read the next book as well, and it was so good. I think I maybe even enjoyed the second book even more than this one, but I really love Danielle's writing, and I think she is so good at writing female characters. Okay, next I have Gild, and I rated this again, I think 4 or 4.5 stars, and this was a really great start to the series. I had put off starting this for such a long time. I do feel like you should check the trigger warnings going into this. Quite heavy on sort of manipulation. There's also a bit of essay in here, so definitely check the trigger warnings, but I feel like I have gone on and read the second book, and I feel like it's just the first book really that has these heavy triggers, but it's kind of needed to set up the story, if that makes sense. I found this so bingeable and I didn't want to put it down. I really wanted to get to know what was happening. I found it very intriguing. Orana FMC is gilded in gold. She is entirely made of gold. I found that so intriguing, and basically she was kept caged for her safety. So this is a King Midas retelling, and our FMC Auron is supposedly turned to gold by the king, who has the golden touch and basically can turn anything into gold. And she finds herself being in the middle of a bargain that he has struck, and it kind of goes from there. I don't want to say too much about it because I feel like this isn't super long and it's very fast paced, and I don't want to give too much away, but I really enjoyed this and I enjoyed the second book, and I definitely will continue the series, but again, I just need to get back round to it. Okay, and then next I have Anathema by Keri Lake. This for me was a solid 4.5 stars. One thing about me is I'm gonna eat up a dark gothic fantasy every single time. This was so good. I wasn't sure what to expect when I went into this because a lot of people I know had read this and not really enjoyed it. And I was really surprised because I love Keri Lake. I love her writing. It's so atmospheric and gothic and moody, and I'm just obsessed with it. So I went in almost with lower expectations than what I would have done if I hadn't heard anyone else's opinion on it. And I absolutely love this. I loved it so much. I don't understand why more people don't love this. Maybe it's because the romance was maybe a little bit more of a subplot than the main focus. And I honestly didn't mind that because the romance subplot was so good, but the world in this to me was so intriguing. I was hooked. I wanted to know everything, and I'm so excited for the second book of this to come out because this, I really loved the witchy horror kind of vibes in this. It was very gothic, and this was an incredible slow burn. I feel like Keri Lake is the queen of slow burns, and the MMC in this is dark and tortured and brooding, and basically that is my favorite kind of MMC. I honestly will read anything that Keri Lake writes because her writing for me is just like chef's kiss amazing. Okay, then we have Diabound by Sable Sorensen. You guys already know this was a 5-star read for me. I know I've been yapping about this book nonstop, so you guys probably are sick of hearing me talk about this, but I loved this. It was so fast paced. I feel like every sort of couple of chapters, something really like gripping was happening, and I was just covered in full body goosebumps. This is set in a world where we have vampires and we have direwolves, and the direwolves in this world choose to bond with certain humans, kind of like a Fourth Wing vibe with the threshing. And Merrin, our FMC's sister, is taken in the night. She's been snatched by the vampires and she wants to get her sister back, obviously. And so she enlists in the army to be able to get to the front lines of the war and try locate her sister. Little does she know, it is the bonding trials this year, and she ends up having to go through the trials to bond with a direwolf, even though she doesn't actually want to. And the direwolves in this were so good. The main female direwolf in this, Anasa, she was so sassy and I loved her so much. This is a love triangle. We have two very different MMCs. One's sort of like the golden prince kind of character, and then the other one is the dark and grumpy instructor. And I'll let you take a wild guess which one was my favorite. I think it's gonna be fairly obvious. Of course it was the instructor. He was called Stark, and basically he was like an alpha of the direwolves, and he was so mean. I love it when they're a little bit mean, I really do, and he was, oh, so good. I don't want to say too much more about this because I do feel like you kind of need to go into this a little bit blind, but that's the basic. This was so good. It made me feel so many feelings, and it was just such a fun time. I savored this, I devoured this. I didn't want it to end, and I need the next book immediately. Then we have Beg the Night by Emily Blackwood. This really surprised me. I rated this 4.5 stars. I ate this up. The only reason it wasn't a 5-star for me is because I would have liked a little bit more world building. I feel like it didn't have really any world building. Actually made it very easy to get into, and you kind of straight into the story, which I did like. It kind of gripped me from the very beginning, but also kind of towards the end, I would have liked to know a little bit more about the magic system, because this is kind of dystopian. Think Shatter Me kind of vibes, but this is obviously adult, and it has spice in it, but it's not super spicy because this is an incredible slow burn. So I wouldn't say this was spicy just because there wasn't a lot of spice in it, but trust me, you will be fed by the tension alone. The MMC in this was so mean. He was so mean, and I really loved the FMC in this as well. Basically, there is humans and there's mystics. The mystics are being captured and kept in this big prison cell underground, and she gets thrown into this dungeon with all these mystics who are all men. She's the only female. Well, there's one other female, but she's pretty much the only female in there, and the whole kind of situation is that there's different tiers of mystics. There's tier 1, 2, and 3, and there's only one tier 3 male in the dungeons. Enter our MMC, and his name is Sinner. Yeah, So basically, the whole situation with the dungeon thing, they need to get the mystics to mate in this whole ritual. They have to do it willingly, but they're using the mystics to fight their war. When the mystics mate, there's like this surge of power, they become more powerful, and then they're obviously utilizing that power to aid themselves in the war. So that is like the kind of main plot line in this. I feel like this is severely underrated. I think it only has recently come out. I need more people to go and read this, please. Okay, and then next we have The Knight and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. This was so beautifully written. Rachel Gillig will never fail to impress me with her ability to put such gorgeous and poetic words on paper, and they just seem so natural, like it doesn't seem forced. It's so organic how it kind of like flows. The world she created was like super atmospheric, and the belief system and like the magic system was really, really intriguing and very unique. I wouldn't say this was super heavy on romance. It's definitely a subplot, but the romance that was in there was very fun. But I have to say, my favorite character in this was probably the animal sidekick. He was a gargoyle, and basically he called everybody Bartholomew, and he was hilarious. He was so out of pocket funny, and I just didn't really expect this to be funny. The only reason I didn't rate this a 5 stars is because there was a few points in this where it's a little bit slow for me, but overall I loved this, and anybody who likes a good gothic atmospheric story and they're not too bothered about it being super romance focused definitely needs to go and pick this up, because this was such a good read. And then we have Savage Lands by Stacey Marie Brown. This was 4.5 stars for me. This was so fun. I don't know why I hadn't picked this up sooner. I did the audio for this as well, and the audiobook was really good. In this, our FMC, who is a human, gets sent to a super brutal Fae prison. So the majority of this book is set in the prison, and basically in this prison she is fighting to survive, and then she unintentionally captures the attention of the most dangerous man in there, who is called Warwick. And again, this was one where it is super short, but I was so immersed in this story, and I'm super excited to pick up the next book and continue this, because the ending, I need to know. I need to know where this goes. This was really, really good, really fun. The tension and the slow burn in this was so good. I feel like I don't see enough people talking about this for how much I enjoyed it. And then we have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This was 5 stars. This for me was very much like A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, which is another 5-star read of mine that I read last year or the year before, and this very much gave me those vibes, mixed with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which, by the way, I think is set in the same universe, because I think there's maybe a mention of Addie in this. Maybe. I need to confirm that. I'm actually going to an event with V. Schwab very soon, so I will be asking her, because I have an idea about that. Summing this book up into 3 words: toxic lesbian vampires. This was incredible. It was exquisite. The writing was gorgeous, and it just pulls so many emotions from you. There's yearning, there's obsession, there's need, there's hunger, morally grey characters, there's revenge, female rage, and all the while this sort of theme of navigating, letting go of the past versus holding on to it, and the vampires kind of being human, dying, and then gradually losing their humanity as it rots over time. This was so atmospheric, and you feel so many complex emotions for the characters, because they're all somewhat flawed, but they're so interesting, and I enjoyed reading about all 3 of these characters, especially the first one we're introduced to, Maria. She is such an interesting character. She's definitely morally grey. And like I said, if you have read A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson or The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue and you loved those, then you absolutely need to read this. You will devour this. Also, I did the audiobook for this, and the narrators did such an amazing job. Their voices were incredible. Really, really gave like an extra layer of depth to the story. So I would recommend doing an immersive read if you can, because it was so good. And then the last book I'm going to talk about is The Wolf King by Laura Palfreman. I hope I'm saying that right. And I finished this morning actually, and I rated this a solid 4 stars. This was so fun. Again, I did the audio for this, and it was duet narration. The MMC was Scottish in this. So basically in this, we have humans and we have wolf shifters, and they don't get along. There's a war going on between them. And our FMC is a human princess, and she gets kidnapped, and she gets taken by an alpha wolf from one of the clans. And so there's kind of this whole captive storyline. We sort of have an enemies to lovers situation going on. There's so much tension between these two. The MMC in this, he was so pathetically obsessed with her, and I loved it. I really loved it. And I felt like this story was quite addictive. I didn't want to stop listening to this. I just found it so good. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. Thought the audiobook was amazing. Again, a relatively short one. I think this is a duology and the second book is out, so I'll probably pick that up straight away, to be honest. This is honestly just like a fun, quick read, but I absolutely ate it up. Okay, so I think that pretty much concludes all the books that I wanted to talk about in this video. And I feel like I've read some really, really good books so far this year. And there's definitely so many more I'm really excited to read in the second half of this year. I hope you guys have managed to find some recs in here, some new books maybe you haven't heard of before. And if you do read any of these and love these, then feel free to drop me a message and let me know, because I always love to hear when you guys read books that I recommend and you love them as well. If you did enjoy this video, please do consider subscribing to my channel. But other than that, guys, I hope you have a lovely day, evening, whatever it is you are doing, and I will see you in the next video.